Welcome to the lovely IHP community and the 5D collective. And to those who are new, we are a bunch of mystics and spiritual and mindfully living, loving people as our true, authentic self. So we do not have any of trauma charges. We have the capacity to metabolize all of that which would involve a charge, and that's because we know how to anchor in our ventral energy thanks to mindfulness practices being put into practice with mindset skills and the inner growth mindset. And so you're a self-agent, self-regulating, independently of others, which is why you are in that 5D state of consciousness, Christ consciousness, oneness consciousness. It's about uncontrollably loving. We all have flaws and imperfections. God is the only one who will judge any of us, and it's once we are physically dead. That's for the functional inner child adults who do not follow Peter Pans, who are instead there for the adaptive child part individuals who do not know how to be their true self. They are paused. They have shame, blame, fault, revenge. They will usually have maladaptive patterns of behavior and adaptive child part behavior. So when they come into an interaction, they will be trying to prove they're right, wrong. There's a whole bunch of ways that we talk about it. They lack integrity. They lead with shame. They're motivated by it and more. And it's not something for us to tell them, because actively their trauma will have began their first 3 years of life. And the people who don't believe in neuroscience, neurobiology, or mental health, we don't really have much to say about that either, because as Sam Harris points out, if your beliefs are not falsifiable, if there's no scenario that could convince you that your most cherished opinions are in error, then that is proof that you didn't get them by being in contact with reality. The 5D collective is in contact with reality thanks to using our prefrontal cortex. And so with an integrated brain, restorative embodiment, resiliency is what I get to create, and I get to talk about how empowerment works, and that's why Enlightenment Soul Age Group also is fun. So for us, there's no regret or failure, because why would I regret anything? I'm a conscious human being. Pure consciousness, you embody it when you are using prefrontal cortex. People who use the word differently, I get it. I'm not. So consciousness also, FYI, sciences and atheists and people who are from that group will look at God, Akash, source, universe, intelligence with that word consciousness. I bring spirituality and human elements from my subjective experience of spirituality. And the human elements are people who teach me. They're all great subject matter experts. Also, I'm a discerning, equanimous, loving human being. Thanks God. That's what God is to me also. And it is thanks to God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and my mother and my twin. Obviously, my little sister, I'm going to bring her in, but my twin and my mother, because that's my implicit memory stuff. Okay, so my memory and imagination lead with a 3-year-old that's whole and a differentiated self. So we're going to use some quotes and more, but that way you know who I am and why I get to tell you how easy it is for Maria to be herself, and why Bezo van der Kolk is awesome, as he taught me why people don't know how to be themselves. And that's where we're going to leave it. So when I meet the ones who don't know self-empowerment, it's because they do not identify with being their true self and integrity. No, they identify with a bunch of words that lead them to be adaptive child part people, like the Lost Boys with Peter Pans who follow Wendy's. And 3D and 4D are going to be there. Okay, so for me, anything that I share, it's a food for thought. Sometimes it's channeled guidance, messages with food for thought. And on that note, we do have a beginning. I'm going to share that maybe later on, of some channeled guidance, food for thought messages for the lovely 5D collective. So you're anchored in ventral energy, which is also why you do know if someone is hurting and it does not hurt you at all, that means you have forsaken your humanity. Thank you, Sadhguru. Okay, so when I think of Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, I was taught with my catechists about discernment and equanimity and love, even if I didn't have the words. And that's because I also got taught what it looks like when a grown-up tries to shame me and be basically someone who has no manners whatsoever. And my mother has taught me how to handle that, which is to stand and to be quiet. Also, in catechism, I learned there's only one God, so people in flesh are not a representation of anything except for the words that come out of their mouth. The only people who follow, people who shame, blame, fault, revenge, and talk to this day about Lucifer to me, are the same people who I completely leave alone, because they don't take their 2 hands, 2 feet, and go and heal themselves with Patrick Tiahan so that they can unpause, get their child reparented, learn to love themselves first, and then move on to Terra Real so they can learn to be a real man, a real woman, and a real day, because until that day, I don't have a person in front of me. I'm going to have, like my facade friend, a liar. So when I meet adaptive child part people, they are people that I'm aware have no idea that I do know where they come from, the same place I come from. It's called a womb. And I will be sad for those who do not cherish going to good therapists to get their 0 to 1 year old attached panicky and their 3 to 7 shame submissive in their own hands so that they can metabolize. That means every single bit of whatever it is that took place, their nervous system, their childhood stuff, learn to become what is a emotionally available, mentally available, physically available, healthy, self-worth human being. I will know when I have a functional adult in the forefront, that's a person being their self. And then I will know when I don't. And they won't know the difference because I won't tell them. But you better bet they won't necessarily like me, which is not something that I try to do, but I won't hide Maria. Maria exists. She's not hidden. She's not shamed. She's not anything. She's actively in her ventral vagal state, even in the presence of my mother and twin to this day, which, by the way, the 3-year-old, she comes out always with them. And that makes sense, which is where trauma doesn't get forgotten. It stays stored in sensations, images, those affects, which you want to create a window welcome to, behaviors and meanings. Okay, so the 3D, 4D, I'm going to keep using words Maria's way. The 5D is the collective that are functional inner child adults. 3D, 4D are adaptive child. So they are the ones who have chosen fear. They're committed to it. They follow Peter Pan's and Wendy's, and we're going to keep making fun of them because they don't choose to. No, because really, no, we're going to make fun of things in general because entertainment. And also because Mean Girls, why not? They are not impressive. So when I see people who perpetuate stereotypes, ignorance, I'm not impressed. When I see people perpetuating a story that sounds like suffering and a violin, I'm like, okay, please go to the Zen master who doesn't know how to build resiliency with his own embodied brain because he's chosen to consistently disregard that every time he stubs his toe, sadness, anger, surprise, disgust, fear, and happiness are basic emotions. Then we have feelings that also evolve from these emotions. And guess what? You can rule all of them, not by controlling. No, controlling means you're holding it down. No, learning how to navigate your nervous system in its ventral vagal state. But idiots think it means you have no emotions because they don't like eustress, because they want to be in their hypervigilance. So here's what idiots are to a person who is a functional adult. They are perfectionistic, harsh, and unforgiving. They see the world in black and white, yes, and they don't like when people want to bring a bunch of things together, and then they don't like also the truth, neutrality and duality. They will say, oh, how dare you have no opinion, because they want to because they think the charge means that they're standing for their position. Well, I know it's their 3-year-old with a 16-year-old who's spiting their own self and a lot more. Okay, so that's why it's not a Lucifer. It's very sad to let you all know, fun fact, Patrick McNamara proves it, and he's going to continue proving it, and neuroscientists and neurotheologians and smart brain science people get disregarded all day long. I'm the mystic woo pseudoscience lady. So when somebody tells me science is ha 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 ha, I'm like, okay, let me leave it alone. So the adaptive child, again, is a child's version of an adult that developed to protect the wounded child. So when you have exiles, protectors, and parts of yourself that are protecting you, the sad part is that you are protecting yourself from the aggressor, which was your own household, but you will become like that aggressor because you will hold yourself and others the way you were held if you don't heal and therefore get out of the defectiveness, shame, blame, fault, revenge, which is why when I meet a adaptive child, they don't know anything because I know how to be a functional child adult. Also because God is God and he taught me through Jesus how to forgive and know life is not suffering, which is why when I heard about Buddha leaving his town and then the whole thing about Buddhism making that life, the truth is that life is suffering, I'm like, no, not really. But then again, I do know why from that group and that story, you have this way of talking about it. I also know that mindfulness, meditation, and yoga support ventral vagal toning, integration of brain. So it's really great that I know you're going to support people to be able to embody that which is ventral vagal toning and integration of brain, and then if they want, they can move into more of their whole self if they ownership of their core narrative, relational, and solo self and become the owner of the sense of self and identify with their name. Now, when you are sad for every human being who will continue to perpetuate fear because their fearmonger parents had them have shame and blame and fault and revenge, and they want to keep those manners going, we all know what's happening. That's the split. Some people will become eustressed, some people won't. And love and fear always coexisted in the past because that's actually the two different energetic imprints. But we could also call it dark matter, dark energy. I bring science, spiritual, and spirituality elements together to look at human evolution, consciousness, and being yourself. And so again, you get to learn about the keys to inner growth, the mindset, to leading with your heart, an open heart. And that's because open-heartedness is all that it takes for a teenager to tell you, when I met unkind people, yes, my heart was like, I was like, nope, you stay open, because we do know what love is. Holy Spirit, God, Jesus taught me. So did my mom. And they're unkind. And they actually are cowards. And they're not nice. And they're betrayers. And they're liars. And they are not standing up for each other. I don't want to copy them. That's completely not nice. Oh, they didn't break my faith in humanity. I mean, just because 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 people do this, you think I'm going to make it a blanket statement? 8 billion people? Wait, adaptive child. Yes, what was it? Black and white thinkers, all or nothing. And what was it? Michael Yapko, the smart therapist, man. He taught me about how there's this generalized thinking, and that studies have shown why people don't move out of PTSD. They use the generalized thinking. One bad thing happens to me, it always is going to happen. And I have met people who will continue to live out the it always happens to me, and there's your 3D, 4D. And actually, therapists will also explain that part too. It's called the adaptive child with the charge is looking for bystanders to come take their side and then stand together. We got flat earthers, and yell at everybody who's different and say, we are the right ones. And they don't move out of that. So they stay limited pieces of consciousness. And we thank our brothers and sisters for holding down the fear frequency. And nope, again, no demon or Lucifer, just 8 billion people are not all going to want to become their true self and to become the emotionally, mentally, physically available people they could be. And again, they tell me in my face, I don't believe in neuroscience. So it's like, okay, you don't have to believe in everything, because, I mean, reality is this. Sam Harris, if your beliefs are not falsifiable, if there's no scenario that could convince you that your most cherished opinions are in error, then that's proof that you didn't get them by being in contact with reality. So a academic is what I still am at heart, which is why I know, yes, anything I say doesn't really matter. There's so many different subject matter experts. It's amazing. The people who don't like it, again, they don't know navigating in the mindfully aware brain of theirs in the right mode. This is where you are okay with the darkness. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again. Yeah, so I'm okay with darkness because I know God. I talk to God all the time as a mystic. I know that when I go to sleep, I don't know if I'm going to wake up again as a person. And my human secondary consciousness is not a dilemma. It's a condition, because I'm motivated to basically continue to be Maria from my heart. So this is when you're identifying with being yourself. Okay, so you will feel consistently more of you when your self is whole. You own the sense of self, core, narrative, relational, and solo. My 0-1-year-old, she's mine. My 3-7, just so you can understand, physically speaking. Freeze of all ages, those panic attacks. We know about light body and rainbow body, but there's panic attacks that can also involve our freeze responses. Those are for all ages. Our 11, 12, flight, and then our fight, 14, 15, 16. And this is from my teacher, Sue Martin. So those child charge parts are all trauma charge parts. So those don't have to be wounds, though. And they don't have to be exiles, protectors. In fact, I have my higher self. She's right here. So the 5D collective lead with higher self. The functional child adult leads with higher self. When our ego comes in town, it's with a higher self. Adaptive child don't lead with higher self. No, but their higher self can come into the picture. And if they decide to become in their 5D state of consciousness at one point or another, we'll find out. And that's where they will join the land of the living, because they will finally choose aliveness, self-regulation in their ventral vagal state, and therefore disengage completely from maladaptive patterns of behavior, drinking, drugging, fucking, inner, outer critic, shame, blame, fault, revenge. They will disengage completely from having these charges and using them with their group and going and yelling at each other. They will also disengage from adaptive child. Let me make it about myself. Let me come in and tell you I'm right or wrong. Excuse me, you're confusing science spirituality. So they will stop interrupting people randomly. They will also stop talking over people like my facade friend. Okay, so you'll notice when you have a functional inner child adult, because they are consistently walking a walk and talking a talk with their ventral vagal state. And they want that. So they like intelligence and they like intellect. And they don't take things personally, and they don't think they know what's right or wrong. They think that they have their own opinions and they share them, and then they have their own intellectual intelligence, and they keep on wanting to do more. So identity is not something that we have with words of my society or anything. No, Maria's my identity. Okay, so the self-agent who has personality patterns that are flexible, temperament flexible, attachment security of flexible, is this. And so you're able to completely continue to do, and that's why my friend called me a hypocrite. You do this and that are true. So for people who are fixed and rigid, they find that being able to be flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable, use stress, in fact, is meaning you have no position. And I like to say, no, it's just that I'm more like what is called the angry Buddhist, but I'm not a Buddhist because life is not suffering to me. And also because Jesus is who suffered, but really life's not suffering. I use my prefrontal cortex all the time. Didn't need yoga to ventral vagal tone. I'm really doing great. I didn't realize why so many people wanted a reward after crying or being angry, but now I do know because my 3-year-old, she's whole. So I don't have an adaptive child of Maria or exiles. This is when your higher self is leading the way and your teenager isn't, and you know when they come up. I know when my child parts come up, my mother and my twins still deal with my 3-year-old. So that's actually something I've been working on since I was 16. It's still going to be in the works, and I'm 45. You can only imagine. The adaptive child is self-preserving. They only care about what they care about, which is very true, which is why they want their leaders to rule and win, because they believe they know the right way and wrong way, and they completely do not want to negotiate. So that's exactly why you don't try. They are the older child version of themselves. It's called the teenage version. It's also why they're in their sympathetic. And they come together with people like the flat earthers do so that they can yell at each other. They definitely view intimacy as a threat because the minute that they are completely engaging with anyone, their faith in humanity is broken. They have charges they don't take ownership of. You name it. They can keep using words, but at the end of the day, when you see a room of people not having a good time, yeah, that's pretty clear. When you see a room of people talking about all things and having a good time, awesome. That's where we have our 5D collective, mystics, spiritual, mindful, living, loving people. So they only react, not only do they react to aggressors, the adaptive child, but they also identify with the aggressor. So they replicate the manners that they were held with, which is why then they treat you the same way they were treated. So if they were shamed, they want to try and shame. No, that's not conscious. But they will. They will get into their own aggressor's mannerisms because those are only the mannerisms that they know. That's why Terreal is important. So when you acknowledge that I will hold myself and others the way I was held, and you're consciously aware of it, and you're going to be yourself, though, with integrity, you don't hold somebody in any childlike way. No, this is no. A functional inner child adult, what I call them here, because we forgive and love. We are all equally at ease with those who are biologically rude because they don't represent a physical threat, and we have a good gut. Because when you have healthy self-worth and you're empowered, this is why there's no regrets, there's no failures, because you're using the prefrontal cortex as you continuously expand consciously. The consciousness of any one of us expands as you have bilateral vertical overall integration, and yourself is whole and you own it, and that's why you stand in integrity. Securely attached, non-traumatized people self-regulate in their ventral vagal state. They have no beef with anyone who has bad manners because unkind behavior is not Lucifer. It's Patrick Tiahan's biggest regret from his childhood. So he is healing, I always say, from his stuff because he still takes ownership for when it comes up. And he has a community of those who heal with him and helps them to reparent. So I honor Patrick, and he says you don't have to forgive your homes. I totally get it. He holds parents responsible, no, accountable. I hold all people accountable for their trauma charges and their trauma state, but I am not going to be shaming, blaming, faulting, or avenging, or charging at you because God, yes, he's discerning equanimous love, and he talks to me. And he says, mind your own business. I don't ask him all the time. He just tells me to stop judging human suffering. It's a very clear equation, God. You are my brothers and sisters. You're made like I'm made. Your soul is like mine. It's pure love. You will only access your soul if you get rid of those trauma charges by metabolizing them and getting out of trauma time. So I already know what the deal is, that everybody has the kingdom of God within them. Thank you, Jesus. Everybody has the seed of enlightenment within them. Thank you, Sadhguru. And we also have our lovely Hippocrates. Where does he share? He shares that the soul is the same in all living creatures, although the body of each is different. Thank you. So definitely we already have answers. And what I can tell you is I thought 4D and 3D would get out of 4D, 3D, but now I know they won't. So when you know about how the abundant mind and ego have strength of character, commitment, integrity, it's because we're able to not be a fool, because we do know we're all made of flesh. Now, nobody plays God out of the mystics that are in the 5D frequency and that are enlightened and that are spiritual. We don't identify with our stories, our ancestors. We share We can talk about tools, techniques, mannerisms of whatever it is and however people want to word it, but you are your own one healer, and the first step is getting to learn how to use your prefrontal cortex if you take seriously your life. And that's because otherwise you're going to be repeating maladaptive patterns of behavior and hypervigilance and a lot more that won't lead you to having. Couples can do remarkable things to heal each other as best friends, confidants, better than any therapist because they're romantically engaged. Stan, Tatkin, Psych-D, MFT, no, not all. If they are securely attached, non-traumatized, and or have at the very bare minimum real, great, yes. They need to have self-awareness, accountability, regulation skills. Otherwise, they don't know how to get out of their maladaptive patterns, and we got an inner-outer critic going on in the brain, which means that I got a person who's going to feel low and down and under and not know how to get energized. The part about restorative embodiment, resiliency, it is not something difficult. Emotions are not difficult. We like emotions. The 5D, state of consciousness group. If you don't have to. That's why I'm trying to make sure you understand what being yourself is, because I knew of it simply as, I'm Maria. Now I know it's Maria's authentic because she doesn't have shame. She doesn't have blame. Nope, not even a little bit. And when people have done whatever they thought was cool as a teenager, all I can tell you is to this day, when I see adolescents, I think, wow, I mean, I know we're better off now, but you're still doing the same stupid shit that I had to witness. And you know what? I'll tell Maria, you were stupid. But it was great. You learned within 3 years what stupidity looks like, and never again did I turn and say, let me try and be your friend. Nope, I choose who I want to be around. And that's when I got selective, and people say picky. And then by the time I'm 19, I learned, nope, no Lucifer God, just cowards. And then I'm 20, and I got taught this thing of don't play the know-it-all. And I learned that one, which is why I'm still working on making sure that I come to let you all in on a fun fact. God is discerning quantumous love, and he taught me how I need to stop judging human suffering as a waste of fucking time, because I'm not in your body or your brain or your mind. Nope. But you know what? I really think when people don't understand, as I say, I don't suffer life because I have emotions, and you're lying, or you are so technical. So whenever people don't understand what anchored in ventral energy means, and they make it look like I don't know what feelings are, I just think I can't prove it to you, nor would I want to in any way, shape, or form, because right now all I'm thinking about is God keeps telling me not to judge human suffering, and I am trying my best to just leave so I can go hang out with intelligent people. Because intelligence requires mental, emotion, physical intelligence, and depth. And if you don't have depth. The minute that I will be told that sadness, like that Zen master's laundry, I'm already like, okay, that was hilarious. He had a really great bunch of things to say. I'm just honing in on the fact that you think you deserve to be called Zen master, and I don't, but I'm only Maria. So there you go. An intelligent person knows that he is a fool. I'm a fool. But a fool does not know that he is a fool. The Zen master is an adaptive child part. They are a person who took an identity on. Zen master talks to me about how you cannot achieve enlightenment, as he's trying to basically say, be careful for scam artists. That's any group of people. It's not just if I use the word enlightenment. Oh my gosh, with these words, these adaptive child part people, they're hilarious because they make it. They put words on pedestals. And so he's saying no one can be enlightened and or enlightenment frequency. In the meantime, he doesn't know neuroscientists to explain exactly how you do the flow state. I know all about it. So when I hear people with stories about emotional lack of depth, I just know, okay, I can hear your explanation. I definitely know it's not true because you just limited a whole bunch of other people to be enlightened, and you didn't notice that you are the one who's limited piece of consciousness, but you're a voice that is serving the ones who want to call themselves Zen master like you. So like the flat earthers, you have a group, you belong. Now you can cheer each other. Hey, have fun, Pinocchio. Peter Pan, there's some more Lost Boys for you, and you got Wendy's. So function in your child adult brain. Mind and self is, emotions deeply. They don't torture your soul because your soul is love one, but also because your ego is part of it. And really, it's because you're using your prefrontal cortex and not your temporal junction. And that's mindfully living and loving people with mindset skills, because introspection beyond the 5 senses, okay, those 9 domains of integration that I learned from lovely Dr. Daniel Siegel, I got all of them. I keep on understanding why people look at me when I describe to them how I deeply feel every single piece of moving muscle shit that goes on in my body. And I just recently did that, and I'm watching the blank stare, and I'm not understanding, because when people stare at me and they don't tell me what's going on, I don't know. Do I keep talking? Do I not? What do I do? And that's how it works. So am I oversharing right now? You know, you here, I'll leave you with this story. So anybody that has heard, I'm a Reiki master, you know this, but I also tested out reconnective healing because I have the book. And as he points out in his book, because you're reading it, you're going to be able to play with this. And I did. It's really amazing. Also, FYI, energy is energy. So I'm going to tell you, if you have a mind like mine and a brain and a body, meaning that you go with all, you're good. Anima mundi, right here. Oh my God, it's amazing. So there is a difference between words, energetic imprints, between their school of thought, all of that. So when I did do reconnective healing, I can perceive, yes, the difference between when I'm doing a Reiki session. But obviously, the energy is the same because it's the intelligence. It's consciousness. That's it. There's no need for me, if you are of our community, to go forward. The only ones who keep it all separate and all little are people who don't use two sides, and they will not like this, and that's okay. They want to put their books on pedestals, they can do that. I don't put books on pedestals. I know that tomorrow there's going to be new books, and then there's going to be other books, and then there's going to be some that I'm like, did I really maybe I shouldn't have bought these books because they really sound like something that is, but that's for another time. Okay, so I'm able to describe my sessions because I get the honor to have sessions with a reconnective healer. And this was before I tested it out myself. I was already a Reiki master, so I knew how Reiki works. And in the sessions, though, I was very thorough because I remembered. And the person before our last one said, "Okay, but this time, you know, it was kind of like, don't." I don't know if they thought I was paying too much attention, but they said not to do too much or something like that. And so at that point I'm like, okay, you're the one who told me to give you feedback. Like, I thought you wanted feedback. And my point to you all is this: when I heard Sadhguru talking about you can feel all of the blood, like he was going on with this description of how when you are spiritual and a spiritual being, so beyond the five senses, the sixth sense, that it's like you can feel everything going on. I didn't find it like something that I understood at the time. Then I got the attachment trauma education, then I got the word interception, then I got to become more aware of, wow, apparently what I feel is not the average bear. And that's why I'm letting you all know. Fun fact, those of us who have a good relationship with our mind, our body, and we are using our prefrontal cortex, we will feel it. And people say, I believe that doesn't happen. It's like, look, I can't prove this to you. You don't understand when I say I can feel my biochemistry change. And even if I'm using the word wrong, what I'm saying is when I have stuff changing, I feel it. Is why I stopped venting at a certain point. I'm like, okay, this is really getting disgusting, the energy I could just perceive, and it's a waste of my time, and I don't find it solving anything. And here's what people said when I said, look, I'm stopping to vent because it doesn't there's no use for it. Can you help me, interrupt me when I'm doing it? But you're not God, you're not Jesus, you're not Buddha, you're not this, you're human. And so they gave me contestation. I said I wasn't really talking about that at all. I asked if you would help me to stop venting, but it's okay. I can do it myself because it's my mind and my body and my heart. And so really I can learn how to pause myself. I've done it before. Thanks so much. Okay, so when people don't want to be mindfully aware and with mindset skills and with the inner growth mindset, it's because they'd rather carry their suffering and not learn to navigate their nervous system in their ventral energy and get their prefrontal cortex down. And this is especially those who actively don't want to, like the Zen master. Why? I don't know. Don't ask me. Let's ask Patrick Tian. What's up, Patrick? Cowards, yes. So anybody who disregards healing their inner child, to me, is a coward. And that's because I will consistently remind myself that love doesn't win. Nope, fear has a place. It's called fear for a reason. The low frequency people are here. But I will not forget that those are my brothers and sisters and that they have been gifted this miracle called life. Whether I look at it from God's perspective of you are all my brothers or sisters, or Neil deGrasse, who tells me there's not even a trillion, billion number of ways that you'll be reborn, the same. And this is where that miracle of life and that gift of life, it is cherished. And if it is, it's because you're smart. Because a stable, mature, adaptive, rational, teachable person will not want to suffer when they can hear That restorative embodiment, self-aware, accountable, regulating life is what you were meant to have in the first place and what you can achieve in your lifetime of now, thanks to smart neuroscience, attachment, trauma, somatics, all of them, all the therapists out there, decentralizing of the self. Every single bit of information I've learned has me know you can have heaven in the body, but also because I have it too. And I didn't need yoga. Nope, I didn't even need mindfulness or meditation. Why? Well, because I already had the capacity to be mindfully self-aware, accountable, regulating of Maria's feelings and thoughts like a human being who simply did neutrality and duality. Why? Because I'm not God. I don't cast a stone. I did as a teenager, and I learned not to because that's bad. So sorry, God. I didn't mean to. I wasn't afraid of Lucifer. It's bad because you're a human in your own body. And that's because it's you got free will. Although Robert Sapolsky, the determined, says you don't. And if people prefer hearing they don't have free will, then they can go there. So science is an atheist. They might say, yeah, no free will. I'm going to say, okay. Then again, I have Dr. Daniel Siegel who says, oh, I think they still have free will because he's talking in a different class about something, and that's because he knows that with practices, mindfulness, mindset, you can get to own your core narrative relational solo self and get to secure attachment, and therefore metabolize those trauma charges, all of your child parts, and therefore bring yourself to wholeness, own your sense of self. It might take you 20 years, as Bessel van der Kolk points out. You might never ever be rid of all of those sensations that were horrific from your childhood, but still you will be able to become a whole self who owns the sense of self, which means you have integrity and authenticity, and you'll be enjoying life as a human being with an open heart and knowing that you weren't meant to be born unkind. Thank you, Patrick Tian, for existing. It's his biggest regret. His childhood trauma made him unkind. So when I see unkindness, I remember the teenagers who are assholes. Still to this day, adolescents are assholes. And then I remember all of the other teenagers who were assholes alongside with them. And I remember the grown-ups had already taught me what was good behavior, bad behavior. And I went around pointing out what good behavior and bad behavior was. And they couldn't touch me because I would go rat them out immediately. What do you think? I'm not going to rat you out because you're going to call me a tattletale? Oh, you think I want to actually be a part of a group of a person who's actively behaving like this? You don't sound smart to me. That's an adolescent Maria. I'm a grown-up now, and believe me, I don't even bother with any of that. I got to college, and I'm looking at whiners, and I'm like, what the fuck? You're spending buttloads of money, and you're talking to me about fucking and being miserable? Stop fucking. Don't be miserable. I don't know. What are you doing? So, self-awareness, accountability, yes. It's called regulate yourself in a higher self. Now that I have words to use, I didn't need the words. I just used it. So empowered people are empowered because we're not sensitive egos. We don't pretend to not have feelings. We actually take care of our feelings. And we also, though, know that there's no demon inside of the body of anybody. Unkindness is the result of people who have trauma and they don't want to heal it. Of people who have trauma charges, doesn't have to be big or small trauma, but they will stand together like the flat earthers and yell at each other and say, you're all idiots. And again, we all can be idiots. In fact, our lovely Sadhguru has a quote for us about intelligence. An intelligent person knows that he is a fool, but a fool does not know that he is a fool. People who lack self-awareness, accountability, regulation, adaptive child, they are all fools. They don't hear themselves, and they don't notice their inconsistencies, and they don't notice their subconscious and conscious. And even if you try letting them know, they won't. If someone is hurting and it does not hurt you at all, that means you have forsaken your humanity. Thank you, Sadhguru. When I know about every person being a child and then I know that they don't go and reparent, I am not happy. This is why love has already accepted defeat a long time ago. And it's defeats because when you choose fear, I have defeated. I was not successful in having you know you are love like I am, which means that I was not able to have you reconnect with that which is the soul of you. But it isn't my job, and it isn't something I can do, because at the same time, again, the fools are the ones who lack self-awareness. They also lack education, and they like to hear that life is suffering. They, in fact, will use that all over the place while they continue to disregard. No, it's not. Not if you use your prefrontal cortex. It's emotions. If you suffer your sensations, well, again, that's trauma time. So whenever I see Cusco in town, Peter Pans, they're all over YouTube. There's a bunch of them, people who aren't healed, and they think they are. And they actively think that they can teach you how to use that which is I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm going to close us out with Bezel. Trauma is not a story of something that happened in the past. Trauma is the imprint that all experiences leave on your soul and your body as your sensations. And as our lovely Jesus points out, the kingdom of God is within you. As Sadhguru points out, the seed of enlightenment is there in every being. And as Hippocrates points out, the soul is the same in all living creatures, although the body of each is different. So, like I like to share with you all, be you, mindful and flawed with integrity. Integrity means that what other people say about you doesn't matter, but you should not be ashamed of what you have done. And when a person is still living shame, defectiveness, they will not know what it is like to love. That's why Patrick Tihan and Terry Real help people to learn to love themselves first, and then you'll be able to be yourself. And then, though, you'll be able to either do anything different than self-help and life now and go and join a Zen master who whines about emotions and continues with stories, or know that resiliency in the restorative embodiment with self-aware, accountable, regulating people, it is dealing with unknowns, uncertainties, unwanteds, unexpecteds from that which every day will present life, relationships, and more. This is why we know commitment, integrity. We don't have regrets or failures, and God doesn't need to reward us for every time we will have cried or gotten angry or forgave. And when people make it look like because they're spiritual and that they forgave, I think you didn't forgive yet. You still haven't processed whatever it is that took place. You're holding it right here. And the minute you said, I forgave so many people for having treated me, your nervous system still feels abandoned from someone and or something that you would have wanted, that would have had your back, that didn't. And you haven't processed it completely to accept they didn't have my back. They actively were never there. And this is where it isn't hard to actually do this. You know, I mean, love is supporting each other to fly. Love lifts us up when we are down, and it soars the skies with us when we are up. Love is always there. You love to love, live, laugh, learn, expand, and not cast stones. That is what we get to be here. And as a person who knows this, and this is like the back of my hand, I'll share with you all my facade friend story, because he's definitely one of the ones that didn't have my back in the way that I was talking about. Okay, so again, today our topic revolved around how those who are getting to be themselves, even though it was a short, but here, and I share with you stories and then different attachment trauma education stuff, and I'm pseudoscience lady, remember that, I can't fuck up, forget data, but the abundant mind and ego, those are the people who have strength of character, commitment, integrity. That's because they're securely attached and untraumatized. So they're anchored in ventral energy. They're anchored in ventral because they actively bring ventral vagal state to the forefront. It's called eustress. It's amazing. And that's why ascension energies don't bring us down. We don't have light shadow, none of that. That's actively people who are just high and low on their sympathetic dorsal vagal. So being yourself spiritually as a mindful mystic person of faith or science, and atheist, either or. It's all one and the same for those who are in their restorative, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating life. You are now a functional child adult, not only a functional adult. I have no conditions. I'm a teenager. I find out 3 years, all backstabbers, betrayers, you name it. I'm not really like, oh my God, I'm so impressed. No, I will actively, consistently continue to be Maria and ignore every single one of those idiots. To this day, when I see adolescents, I see idiots. And now that I know the adolescent brain, well, let me just point it out to you. Telling the truth to people and those who you care about doesn't matter because they find it hard to believe. I don't want to. They don't like to take any information for well-being seriously. So you leave it alone. Don't learn to self-regulate, please. In ventral vagal state, continue acting like buffoons with your sympathetic, thinking you have emotions. You know nothing of emotions yet. You just know your sympathetic emotional responses, which is fine because, again, our ancestors did it. So really, you don't have to be restorative. Continue with your distressed nervous system, as I now know physically what's happening to you, but you decided that you wanted to be stupid like I decided when I decided to smoke cigarettes, and I still smoke now. But now I smoke cigars. So there you go. I'm flawed and perfect. I do shit that's bad for me too. So I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, so here's what a functional child adult knows. I don't need to be your mama, dad, and no, I ain't an enabler. I ain't none of that. I'm not a martyr, superior, or blamer. There's plenty of information online for anybody who wants to heal seriously. And all the therapists I asked. I'm a mentor. I'm a content creator. I'm a podcast host. I do this stuff for a living. What are your suggestions for how I handle when I notice people who are actively structurally dissociated in their pseudo alive shit in, they're basically traumatized selves who do not take anything that you're teaching me seriously except for think they know it, and then they don't. They said you can't do anything, and they have to want to be in here with us. Okay, but you can be the person who shares with your ventral vagal state your ventral energy, and you say who you are, and da da da. So that's why it's easy for those of us who have what is called humility, integrity, and self-agency to be friends with anyone pretty much, except for if I don't want to, which is going to mean that I won't be feeling bad when you say, I'm not decent enough to be saluted, but I also won't be mad. And I also won't think, oh my God, society is so much that sounds all very childish. Again, as I grew up, I thought people would grow up alongside with me. And I realized they don't. So when people have charges and sides, I just know that's how they're choosing to do things. Okay, so my facade friend and I, what was the story I was going to share? Because I now lost my train of thought, but he definitely fake because of his mannerisms of self-serving, adaptive child, clown, buffoon, liar, having my back. There we go. So he didn't have my back after he not only was hiding something from me, but he bluntly did shit in front of all these people. I'm just going to keep it vague right now. And this was actually, if one wanted to look at how we play out our cycles, so I know that it was a second round because I can compare it to Maria's first round. That's how it works when you know yourself and you're a mystic. Empowered feminines don't need guides to tell us about our soul contracts, our oversoul, or none of that, FYI. In fact, what we like to do is hang out with the people we love and not call them names, because that's actively really disrespectful to talk about brothers or sisters as energy vampires, dark auras. That's not nice. You're not God, you're not source, you're not universe. You're also contradicting the very fact that we are the same cloth and that everybody is part of soul. But when I meet teenagers, like the back of my hand, I'm spotting ego, but we are anointed, but we suffer more. No, actively you're connected to source. You don't suffer more. You got the good end of the stick. Don't you realize this? How are you not aware that you got the communication with, the blamers? You do everything for everybody and you're not getting patted on the back. When you meet codependent human beings who need Patrick Tiahan and they're on screen, that's why blamers, martyrs, superiors, they come together. And then when you get to witness it and you don't give in, you have no emotions. No, I do have emotions. There's just nothing to be becoming so vicious like the squirrel from Cusco land with. Martyr Superior, I didn't ask you for your opinion. I respect it, but I didn't ask it. But okay, thank you for your thoughts. Yeah, I always listen to what you say. I didn't actually ask you to listen to what I said. So I still thank you for thoughts, but I wasn't trying to tell you how to live life. When you have self-agents that are empowered, that have secure attachment, again, non-traumatized, and they don't need each other's little taps on the shoulders, it's called, I'm not motivated by bonding. I'm motivated by being me and by being physically safe. And then I'm in a relationship because I like you with all of your flaws. Like, I will want to be liked. I'm not trying to dictate how you live your life from thoughts or feelings. So I won't be correcting any of your behavior. I don't have to do any of that. And you don't betray me by the time I get old enough to know life goes and moves forward for everybody. That sounds really petty to think that you can have my back. One, it's a lie. You can't. You physically can't have my back all the time. 24 hours. I'm under a roof right now. Roof falls. There you go. You lied. So this is the part of where it's so clear to a person who's emotionally, mentally, and physically an independent individual without a story, because God ain't testing me. God ain't punishing me. There's none of this. I'm not passing some test every time that there's a... I'm not looking at my life like it's a object for me to observe. I'm experiencing it as Maria. My identity is Maria. I'm living it. So when I'm in the second round, I can tell it to you now, because when I look back, I know the first round. And so this second round, and my friend, no, he doesn't have my back for anything. And I will leave it alone to be vague, because by that time I had already seen everything. So what I saw didn't surprise me, because cowards will always stay cowards. I'm not impressed by cowards to this day. Adolescents continue to not impress me, but I'm happy that they have better grown-ups, meaning more information. I had good grown-ups growing up. They taught me great stuff, and I said they were lying, though. They didn't know that you can love all people equally. That's where I found that they were wrong. In fact, the first person who I learned about love, the way that I love, is this beautiful man, Eric Fromm, The Art of Loving. It's a verb. It consistently is there. It doesn't get shut off at all. And as Stephen Porges points out, that's because when you're a securely attached person, the oxytocin gene hormone is always on. So when you have empowered people who have integrity, who have humility, they will not say, I don't love you anymore, or I love you less. Because, no, I love you the same. And actually what will grow will be the bond that we have and that we share. And that's where we feel that we love each other more. But it's not love that grows. It's that we are sharing more and more life together and enjoying. And so we are motivated, stimulated, enriched. We're enriched. And that gets decided by your amygdala, which you actually will have based on your personality patterns, temperament, based on your interests, intellectual and physical and societal. So it will be, are you an expanding piece of consciousness or not? And that's where, no matter if somebody has your back, that's if I'm not in a physical war, which I'm not, Maria, I don't need you to have my back. And when people have said, but what? But they lied. They don't, yeah. Once you've lied, now I know that your word means nothing because you don't know how to stand in who you are, what you are. I'm not going to make it a big deal. That's immediate. You already have shame. You didn't know how to tell me about stuff in my face. There's nothing happy about when people don't know how to talk. And with all the attachment trauma, all I can tell you is the people who keep on doing this as they get older don't apparently learn what it is to live life, which is self-acceptance, the way lovely Terry Rio points out. We're all crooked to someone. Yeah, that's very straightforward. I can be considered the most biggest betrayer of all, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple of women out there who completely think that, and men, I don't know, but really, I have nothing to say about men because as a woman, I don't like any of the gender stereotypes, and as my men friends have completely told me to mind my own business, I will do what they say so that they can take it up with their own gender to make headway. As a woman, all I can tell you is a man knows commitment. Otherwise, he's not a man. And a woman doesn't suffer life or staying in a sob-ass story of a relationship if she's a woman. As if it's a they, because that's what it's called to be a grown-up. In my book, you know thoughts, emotions, and your body, and so you know how to be yourself. Otherwise, why are you talking to me? At this point in my 45 years of age with all the attachment trauma, it is pretty straightforward, and Robert Sapolsky with Determined, he gives me an answer to why maybe some people won't ever become their functional child adults. Is it a race? No, it's not. It's actively not a race at all, but you better bet that it's been since 2007 that I've been on my ascension journey, and I keep seeing the wheels on the bus go round and round for the 4D mystics particularly. I have some of them, and every time I have to look at what they have become and what they have lacked to take ownership of and accountability, and how they point a finger, they shame, blame, fault, and want to do revenge upon those who would be their masculines, by the way. I do not have anything to say to those who do not learn how to become empowered feminines, like I don't have anything to say to those who don't become empowered masculines, because as God has reminded me, stop judging human suffering and get on with it. So thank you, God, for being discerning, equanimous, loving, and to my mother who taught me exactly how to... I'm Maria. She let me be all of me. So thanks to her and my twin, I get to tell you how easy it is to be yourself with integrity and flaws and have no regrets. There's no failure because you can't fail. Physically, until I'm freaking alive, I won't be failing. Actually, you know what's fun about the resiliency with restorative, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating, and knowing how to explain it is that I know more of you are going to come over here because you want ventral energy versus the ones that you want me only in one emotion. No, I don't, but hey, you don't have to be here. Don't. Please don't. Okay, so we will have some more messages. This is something that's coming up for you all as we have had partial solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse, that new moon, full moon, whatever, all that stuff. And so with that, thank you for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe. And please do remember, we all come from and with differences. Functional child adults don't own words. We don't put words on pedestals. We don't put books on pedestals. Everybody has different ways that they bring something forth. And we are aware of, again, Sam Harris, in case I didn't read it, if your beliefs are not falsifiable, if there's no scenario that could convince you that your most cherished opinions are in error, then that's proof that you didn't get them by being in contact with reality. So we respect that everybody has a different way that they can add up thoughts and whatnot, and that's the part. There are people who will tell me they don't believe in attachment, they don't believe in neuroscience, they don't believe in it. I can't do anything about their belief, that's their belief. So we don't make anybody believe. In fact, you don't make people who are atheists believe in God. The same way those who want to think they own the books, no, they think they own God based on books. They think that they are the knowers of truth based on a timeline of yesterday, which is why I'm like, really? Wow. You're playing God right now, and that's not impressive at all, actually. But I'm not God, and I know my place, which is I don't need to do anything. Once you're gonna be able, and even that equation, when people want to contemplate somebody else's, I don't have anything to contemplate. I just know you're in flesh, which means if you are a representative of God, I will know, because I will know you, since I do know Holy Spirit and Jesus. And it's not going to bring fear and monstrous and divisiveness and more bloodshed and more, no, any of that which is hurting and creating suffering is not part of any creator message. So people who want to keep talking to people who are of faith, of spirituality, in ways of telling us that they're going to make, science can talk a lot of different ways about that which is life. But if you are of spirit, then you will know with spirit source, Akash, we're one. We are all unconditional love. If you want to talk to me about God, you're not God, which is the number one thing. So anyone in human being flesh, and I know what structures do with their little books, still, you're not the entity. And so in my book, as a person who, I will have to just bow down and be quiet, because you're not accepting the truth, which is you are not God. And stop. I didn't think people would grow up to the conspiracies. I know them. I just find that ridiculous, because I'm talking on an individual scale for every person who will come and tell me if they are of faith and if they believe. Then I will say, you know, you are not it. If you do not recognize this, well then, I know who you are. You are cut off from Purusha Prakriti, and you're enamored with yourself, and or you are basically an egoic, grandiose human being who has a pathology for sure. You're not a Lucifer or a demon. No, you're a person who needs a therapist, and you might not get one. And if you have followers, well, again, following the leader. It's not funny, and you're not going to win, because God wins, not you. That's it. I mean, really, it's a very straightforward equation, which is what makes any of those, how dare you, people who put books on pedestals. An intelligent person knows that he's a fool, but a fool does not know that he is a fool. People who are adaptive child people, they're child parts of themselves, child versions, and that's why they don't realize their fool is that they are lacking self-aware, accountable, regulating skills to get themselves in a prefrontal and then to have what is a nice, intellectual, intelligent conversation. And we'll save more for next time. In the meantime, thanks for stopping by. Again, like, share, and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. And that's on YouTube or on Spotify, the audio podcast platforms, also elsewhere. And, you can follow us on Instagram if you want. Facebook, but really I'm very active on YouTube and then on Spotify. And for our community, YouTube is really great. And we have WhatsApp communities for the future as we grow as a community. Thanks for stopping by again. See you soon.